This week on ANN, the President of the United States ensures that religious organizations don't lose their tax exemptions if they endorse political candidates. But what does that mean for the Adventist Church? Get an exclusive report on the executive order right here.
The Vice President of Zimbabwe praises the Adventist Church for renovating a hospital ward that serves a region of more than 1 million people.
And more than 2,500 people receive free health care in Papua New Guinea during a first-of-its-kind Adventist Health Expo in the nation.
These stories and more coming up.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, the President of the United States last week signed an executive order promoting free speech and religious liberty.
By signing the order, President Donald Trump provided flexibility to religious organizations to openly endorse political candidates without fear of losing their tax-exempt statuses.
I sat down with Orland Johnson, the Director of Public Affairs and Religious Liberty for the Adventist Church's North American territory, to learn more about the implications for this for the church. Orland, thanks for taking the time to be with us here. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, let's get into it. So the Promoting Free Speech and Religious Liberty executive order signed by the U.S. President just recently here. What is it? Give us an overview of it.
Actually, it's probably two or three things that it primarily does. One, it reiterates the protection of religious freedom here in our country, which is something the Constitution already puts into place. The second thing it does, it actually expands some of the free speech that exists that the Johnson Amendment actually had placed some restrictions on in terms of being able to engage in partisan political activities in church and with nonprofit groups. And I think the last thing it does, it reiterates the idea of if you have a conscience issue from a religious standpoint, that you have an opportunity really to be heard, and that it encourages other agencies to be able to work to create rules and regulations so that you don't have to feel those type of restrictions.
So like a reiteration, emphasis, and really expanding on that, on the freedoms given. Is kind of
I think so, which is really one of the strengths and the weaknesses of executive orders. Executive orders kind of give you an idea what people would really like to do, but you usually don't get a lot of specifics in there. So the way this is set up is that it implores agencies like Treasury and Labor and HHS to put in place regulations that will assist certain areas. And it also will ask certain agencies to be as unencumbering as possible, not to create any adverse activities, but specifically what that means, you don't know until the rubber meets the road. Absolutely.
All right, quickly, reception. How are religious advocacy groups and organizations receiving this order?
I think they're receiving it the way probably you receive a lot of things in our country nowadays. Half the people love it, half the people don't love it. I think the conservative groups thought it was going to go a lot further to give a little bit more guidelines. And then the liberal groups were really kind of saying, all right, well, it really didn't do a whole lot, so did much really change? So I think really the proof is going to be in the details. What other regulations take place? I mean, a perfect example is the Johnson Amendment that talks about this not having partisan politics, for example, in church and with nonprofit groups. Well, normally you would look at something like that and you would say, okay, that doesn't seem like a bad idea, but it doesn't really change a whole lot. It just pretty much says the IRS will try not to be so, burdensome in your oversight of this. Well, the IRS has never been burdensome in their oversight of it. So although it says all these great things, the real question is, what is the real impact?
Wait and see.
You have to still wait and see.
All right, next question here. The Adventist Church has a policy about politics in the pulpit. How will this affect that policy, if at all?
Interestingly enough, we actually don't have a written policy.
Oh, really?
No.
We just always assumed that.
No, our policy has really been telling our churches you have to stay in compliance with the law. Which was the Johnson Amendment.
I see.
So what this really is going to do is lead to probably us actually codifying a specific policy, because I think after it's all said and done, we don't want to turn our pulpits into places where you're starting to have political activities. And what makes it even trickier is that you could potentially have lobbying groups that are coming and giving money to churches to say, get our candidate to come in. You have a lot of members, people are respected. So from the Adventist Church's standpoint, we'll probably end up getting more specific as opposed to relying more on the law. But we also want to put ourselves in a position where we also still want to have expanded speech.
That's right.
So we don't want any restriction on our speech, but in the same breath, we don't want to politicize what's going on in the pulpit.
That's a fine balance to draw. Let's go to the next question. The North American Church how will they ensure then that that pastors aren't doing this? You're saying they don't want the pulpits to be a platform for political issues or candidates. You know, what is the North American territory going to do? Do you have any, are there set plans, or there's just maybe we'll do this or that?
Yeah, I think the set plans will be, we really have to put something specific in writing and try to provide some guidelines as what it would be. Okay. In terms of what we really try to prevent is really partisan politics. Right. So if you have two sides and you have political people that want to come in and visit your church, I mean, you can't impact the world if you never touch the world.
Amen. Yeah.
So the idea would be is that let's figure out how to do this in a way where you get a chance to inform people, you get a chance not to be engaged in one side or the other, but it has to be an open process for everyone. And then making sure that we're not turning our church into a place where you come there and you feel like you're getting new commercials for political candidates.
Yeah. And you feel ostracized if you're not in favor
Absolutely.
of one political party.
Absolutely.
That's good.
And that's what we look at.
Can you say that statement again for me? You said we can't reach the world if we don't touch the world. Is that?
Yeah, we can't impact the world if we don't touch the world.
That's great.
I mean, we're not supposed to be in the world or of the world, but in order for us to really be able to go out into the world and create disciples, you do have to make contact. And so let them make contact and let them learn about you, and hopefully they're influenced by your points of view, as opposed to simply allowing the politics that may come into the church to actually end up taking over all the emphasis.
All right, that's great. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, I just think the Adventist Church is in good shape, and I think we're going to be in better shape as we start to codify things a little bit better. But at the end of the day, we're all in favor of just protection for free rights and religious liberty for all.
That's great. Thanks so much for your time.
Sure.
I know it's valuable.
No problem at all.
God blessings to you.
The Vice President of Zimbabwe commended the Adventist Church in the nation for funding the revitalization of a hospital ward that serves a region of 1.5 million people. Emerson Mnangagwa visited the site last week to thank Adventist leaders for making the significant contribution to the Masvingo General Hospital. The ward now has many noticeable changes, including new ceilings and windows and a repaired electrical network. According to the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Company, the Vice President said the new private ward here is a success story of collaboration and development. The SDA Church is completely devoted to the service and well-being of the people of this country. The Seventh-day Adventist Church's territory in Zimbabwe invested $40,000 for the ward's repairs to show its commitment to the health of the nation.
More than 2,500 people in Papua New Guinea received free health services thanks to an expo organized by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The first of its kind expo was organized by the church's Madang Manus mission and took place April 3 through 7. Participants of the expo came from the Madang town and nearby villages and communities to have their blood pressure taken, BMI calculated, and blood sugar tested. Guests also received counsel and advice on basic principles of health and wellness from church volunteers. Approximately half of the people who attended the expo requested more information about the Bible and about Jesus. The event was part of the church's South Pacific Territory's new comprehensive health strategy. The strategy encourages members to embrace and to share the Adventist health message using technology to connect, engage, and interact with their communities. The health specialist for the church in South Pacific Territory, Dr. Chester Kuma, said, "It turned out to be an event that attracted total member involvement. It gave the church the opportunity to connect with the community in friendship and relationship building, the very essence of Christ's method of ministry on earth." Heavy rainfall is no stranger to central Jamaica. Even flash flooding that results from the rain doesn't typically bother residents who live in Clarendon. But the rain that fell on Saturday, April 22, caused damaging floods that the region hasn't seen in more than 2 decades. It's safe to say that when the 20 members of the Palmetto Gardens Seventh-day Adventist Church began their meal after Sabbath service, they had no idea it would lead up to a rescue mission. Once floodwaters poured into the church, members fled to neighboring houses. But after hearing a neighbor yell for help, a couple of members sprung into action. Taylor, a taxi driver, and Junior George Wilson, a member of the same church, swam in the 7-foot-high water to rescue a man and his son from their attic. Once Taylor and Junior George got to the house, they had to tear down part of the ceiling before handing the father and son life jackets and a rope to help guide them out of the house and into safety. Since April 22nd, the community and other regions are still recovering from the flood, and everything in the Palmetto Church was also damaged by the flood. Adventist leaders in the region have traveled to the affected areas to offer assistance to the members of the community. The president of the Adventist Church's Central Jamaica Territory ordered 30 mattresses and other supplies for distribution. Church leaders will remain engaged with the Palmetto Gardens community as it recovers from this devastating storm.
A free ebook recently released by 3 Adventist entities about the origin of life is acclaimed as the new go-to textbook on creation science studies.
The unique partnership led to the creation of the book Faith, Reason, and Earth History, a paradigm of Earth and biological origin by intelligent design.
The book is authored by Leonard Brand of Loma Linda University and Arthur Chadwick of Southwestern Adventist University.
This is the first time a major Adventist academic textbook has been made available for free digital download.
The new publishing initiative was a collaborative effort by the Church's North American Adventist Learning Community, Andrews University, and the Church's Faith and Science Council.
The Adventist Learning Community has more.
Visit AdventistLearningCommunity.com/faith-reason-earth-history to download the book.
Coming up, the School of Business for Pacific Adventist University receives a new complex.
But up next, leaders of the Church's Middle East University receive encouragement as they seek to train Christian physicians in a predominantly Muslim region.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Elena et je suis en train de parler en français. Il y a beaucoup de vidéos très chouettes, mais pas beaucoup sont traduites. Vous pouvez aider.
Join the Amara translation and caption team today. Amara is easy to learn and fun. You can volunteer in your free time. Join this community today and provide great content in your language.
Welcome back.
The president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church recently visited the church's only educational institution in the Middle East and North Africa, also known as MENA.
Ted Wilson and his wife Nancy traveled to the Middle East University in Lebanon to show support of the university's new goal of training physicians.
Leaders hope to train Christian doctors who will serve in the Muslim-dominated countries throughout MENA.
Wilson also toured the university's new science complex that houses the school's biology and pre-med programs.
During his visit, Wilson told leaders, God has a very distinct purpose for you and this institution. What a marvelous opportunity to represent the last proclamation of God's great message to the world. In the classrooms, in your personal lives, and in your witness, don't be afraid to represent Jesus.
Now let's travel to another Adventist university, a little more than 7,800 miles or 12,550 kilometers southeast. Outside of Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, the Pacific Adventist University celebrated the opening of a new complex for its School of Business. The new multi-purpose complex will accommodate students on PAU's Koyari Park campus. The complex offers teaching and learning facilities, including new classrooms, computer labs, staff, and student amenities. It also includes 3 new lecture theaters that seat 440 students. The Vice Chancellor of PAU, Raul Lozano, said, "This additional purpose-built facility will alleviate the problem of room allocations for learning in various programs at the university. With these new facilities, students will have a better day-to-day academic experience. Ultimately, this will improve their overall learning experience and their future career prospects." The complex was funded by the Incentive Fund, which is a partnership between the Australian government and government of Papua New Guinea. The fund provides grants to high-performing Papua New Guinean organizations that make an impact in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment of men, women, and children.
We would like to encourage you to check out a documentary that will air on Hope Channel about exposing the truth of spiritualism. Beware of Angels unpacks a true story about a Bible study group that fell into spiritualism and ultimately murder. The documentary also features a former occultist who shared their testimony of how Jesus delivered them from spiritualism. It also highlights why the Bible is the only trustworthy filter for angelic messages from beyond. Check your local listing. Beware of Angels airs Friday, May 19th on Hope Channel.
And finally, for the news this week, do you know a student filmmaker, or are you a student filmmaker? If so, here's a contest you don't want to miss.
Adventist Mission recently announced its new student mission film competition that challenges participants to illustrate their definition of mission.
The catch is the film submission has to be 30 seconds long, but check out the prizes.
The winner will accompany Adventist Mission filmmakers on an all-expense-paid film trip for Mission Spotlight. Second place will receive the GoPro Hero 5 Black camera, and the third place winner will receive the Ricoh Theta S spherical VR camera.
All right, that sounds exciting. For more rules and information about the contest, visit adventistmission.org/missionis.
Mission is... What do you think mission is?
Show us in 30 seconds or less.
Mission is... Students submit your creative,
Unique
imaginative film
by August 31st for your chance to win an all-expense-paid film trip with Mission Spotlight.
Come on, it'll be fun. For details and rules, visit adventistmission.org/missionis.
Coming up, learn about a new Facebook update that allows users to make multilingual posts.
But up next, see the story of John Wycliffe, a man who was a religious reformer before the term was coined.
May I work in with you, young fella?
Yeah. Go for it.
That's the way you do it. Got to put a little weight on it. But I'll put it back up here for you.
Welcome back.
More than 150 years before the Protestant Reformation occurred, there was a man who was steadfast in urging people to return to biblically based practices.
In this week's episode of Lineage, learn about a man who stood alone as a voice of change in 14th century England.
To learn more about John Wycliffe, the Morning Star, and other episodes, visit lineagejourney.com.
Welcome to Lutterworth, the workplace of John Wycliffe and the place where he did his most significant work. John Wycliffe has often been referred to as the Morning Star of the Reformation. The Morning Star is a term coined to describe either a planet or a star that appears shining brightly in the sky just before sunrise. John Wycliffe lived around 150 years before Martin Luther, John Calvin, Zwingli, and the later English reformers, but the work that he did was key in paving the way for them. He was a reformer before the term became popular, standing alone as a voice of change in his generation and in calling people back to the Bible. Educated at Oxford University, he was a scholar and an unrivaled debater. It was whilst he was a student that he first incurred the displeasure of Rome in denouncing the friars and their lazy lifestyle. He was a champion of civil and religious liberty. And John Wycliffe was the first in his era who coined the term Antichrist in reference to Rome. The Archbishop of Canterbury received from Rome a papal bull to investigate the writings of John Wycliffe. But due to his standing at Oxford University and the goodwill he had amongst the people, this was never followed through. Perhaps a key event that helped John Wycliffe was the papal schism of 1378, where there were two popes that each claimed to be the right pope. And so amidst this confusion, John Wycliffe was left in a state of relative peace to carry on the work that he was called to do. John Wycliffe was a great believer in the ministry of preaching. He trained men who were known as the Lollards and sent them out all over the country preaching the gospel. But his greatest achievement was the translation of the Bible. Today we might not grasp the gravity of this, but back then to read the Bible in the language of the people as opposed to the Latin was seen as heresy, something that was forbidden and viewed as dangerous. A church leader in Wycliffe's day, commenting on his translation, said these words, "And so the gospel pearl is thrown before swine and trodden underfoot, and that which used to be so dear to both clergy and laity has become a joke, and this precious gem of the clergy has been turned into the sport of the laity." Wycliffe, though, declared plainly, Christ and his apostles taught the people in the language best known to them. It is certain that the truth of the Christian faith becomes more evident the more the faith is known. Therefore, the doctrine should not only be in Latin, but in the common tongue. John Wycliffe completed the first translation of the Bible into the English language from the Latin Vulgate. It was not a translation that was without fault, but this Bible shed light where previously there had been only darkness. The Bible once read could do only one thing: pierce through the spiritual darkness that was covering England and Europe at the time. The beams of light began to shine now. The revolution that would be the Reformation would become unstoppable. Today we have the Bible easily accessible. And today I want to challenge you to commit to read God's Word every day, to spend time in His Word, because as the psalmist says, the entrance of thy words gives light.
You don't need Rosetta Stone or any other language learning program to understand this new Facebook feature.
For this week's social media report, Emily Mastrapa and Kati Britton are back to help you understand the new Post in Multiple Languages tool.
¿Sabían que la Iglesia Adventista está...
This one's English. This one's
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you know that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is established in over 200 countries? We use over 900 languages in our publications and oral work. And now, Facebook has a new way to reach out to all these people in all their languages.
Facebook's new Post in Multiple Languages tool shows your posts to followers in whatever language is the most relevant for them. And you can choose up to 45 different languages, from Thai to Arabic to Norwegian, and Facebook will automatically translate the post.
And even though the post will show up in different languages around the world, you still see one post, and all the comments and likes will be under that one post.
So here's how it works. If you go and make a new post, at the bottom right, you'll see Post in Multiple Languages. You just click on that, and then you'll see a drop-down arrow with all the different languages you can choose from, and there's a lot. And then it just will automatically do it for you and can keep going.
Yeah. That is so cool.
It's really cool.
So if you aren't getting this feature, it's because you haven't allowed it in your general settings. Just turn on that function and you'll be able to see it under the post when you start putting something on your page.
So try it out and let us know how you plan on using this new tool.
And finally, for today's program, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we learn about the first Adventist missionaries to sail to the land down under.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On May 10, 1862, the Northern Iowa Conference was organized by 9 delegates from 6 churches. They elected John T. Mitchell as superintendent, the term they then used for president. Reflecting the fact that early Adventists had not yet settled on policies for ministers and administrators, Mitchell was an elder but had not yet been ordained a minister. 2 months earlier in March, a Southern Iowa Conference had been established. Now, these were only the second and third conferences ever founded after the first, the Michigan Conference, which had been established in October 1861. But before a year had passed, the 2 conference set up in Iowa was dissolved, and at a meeting on January 25, 1863, delegates from 9 local churches organized themselves into the Iowa State Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, with Mitchell as superintendent of the United Conference. Exactly 23 years later, on May 10, 1885, 12 Seventh-day Adventists sailed from San Francisco on the ship Australia, bound, naturally, for Australia. The party consisted of 3 ministers: Elder Stephen Haskell and his wife Mary, Elder John Corliss, his wife Julia, and their children Lulu and William, and Elder Mendel Israel, his wife Lizzie, and their daughters Jessie and Mary. They were accompanied by William Arnold, a colporteur, and Henry Scott, a printer. After a voyage of exactly 4 weeks, they landed in Sydney, capital city of New South Wales, on June 8. They were the first Adventist missionaries to Australia and the South Pacific, the forerunners of hundreds of thousands of Seventh-day Adventists in the region, hundreds of whom went as missionaries themselves to other parts of the world. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We'd love to hear from you. Send us your feedback and tell us how your church is making a difference in its community.
Be sure to capture plenty of video footage and photos, then write up a summary of the event's important details. And feel free to send full video reports as well.
You can reach us by sending an email to annvideo11@gmail.com.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 1, verses 3 and 4.
The passage says, "All praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others. When they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us."
That's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.